Well, hello. Welcome to the 2015 Broadband Tech Summit. It looks like people are still kind of trickling in, but we're going to go ahead and get started with our program. My name is Kelly Cole, and I'm the director of the Broadband Outreach Center in the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And first of all, it's my privilege to thank the many sponsors for their significant contributions to make this event possible. So we have some terabit level sponsors. Comcast, you saw that they have an exhibit upstairs. Google Fiber, Toniquant Data Center, Syringa, and then our gigabit sponsor, CenturyLink, and our megabyte sponsors, AT&T, who they wanted me to let everybody know that there's a really cool texting while driving stimulator to encourage people not to text while driving. Beehive Broadband, and then our RWMT. We also have some in-kind sponsors this year. Emory Telecom is providing our camera crews so that we can watch some of the sessions later on and some of the keynotes. And then we also want to thank UPS for providing travel and accommodation for our afternoon keynote speaker, Todd Westberg. And we'd like to thank the Schools, Health, and Libraries Broadband Coalition for flying in their executive director, John Windhausen, to speak to us this afternoon. And the Salt Lake Chamber for helping us with some of the marketing on the event. And we encourage you to go and look at the sponsor booths upstairs and look at the services that they offer and the contributions they make to the community. We have an exciting event planned today. Our two keynote speakers, James Lawrence and Todd Westberg, have some exciting presentations planned. And we'll also be privileged to hear from some great guest speakers that have come in from Washington for this event. We have Brian Gibbons from the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA, and then his counterpart at NTIA, Andy Spurgeon, who's also been heavily involved with the Broadband USA effort. And as I mentioned, John Windhausen is joining us from the Shelby Coalition. We have some great sessions planned on broadband, economic development, next generation applications, smart cities, and smart cars even. And we will also hear about how broadband is fueling the economy and how broadband policy impacts us here in Utah. But please join me first in welcoming our first speaker that will open up our event. Please welcome my boss, Val Hill.
Thank you, Kelly. I want to express appreciation to Kelly and all of our team that are here and that have tried to make this event as successful as it is. I see a number of GOED people out here. We have a phenomenal office in GOED. We have probably about 90 employees, and we have a wonderful opportunity to promote Utah right now, and I'm about to show you why this is such a great job at this particular time. We're going to start today with a little video that Zions Bank helped our office produce that talks about the goings-on in the state. This video is produced for a number of business people that come in for the Sundance Film Festival every year. We show it to them, and it does a pretty good job of showing what a great state we live in. So let's kick off with that. Whoops. Let's see. Is there anything I need to do here? Good? Do I need to click forward? There we go.
It's with great pleasure that I introduce the famous Broadway actor Patrick Page, who will be reading from one of my very favorite books, The Brightest Star.
The brightest star. There's a magical state in the American West that's a little bit different than all the rest. It's hard to imagine unless you've been, but I'll do my best to fill you in. It's about yay high and about yay wide, where the
Hello, I'm Governor Gary Herbert. It's with great pleasure that I introduce the famous Broadway actor Patrick Page, who will be reading from one of my very favorite books, The Brightest Star.
The brightest star. There's a magical state in the American West that's a little bit different than all the rest. It's hard to imagine unless you've been, but I'll do my best to fill you in. It's about yay high and about yay wide, where the while even more, just come here to see the Red Rock country. Sandstone bluffs, the arches, the hoodoos, they can't get enough. 7 national monuments, 6 national.
Hello, I'm Governor Gary Herbert. It's with great pleasure that I introduce
for whatever that's worth. Folks from everywhere come here to ski, while even more just come here to see the Red Rock country. Sandstone bluffs, the arches, the hoodoos, they can't get enough. 7 national monuments, 6.
It's really a good video. I apologize that that didn't work, but it tells the story of what's going on here in Utah and does it quite well and creatively. But there is a great story to tell right now here in our state. We have some fantastic things going on in all areas of the economy. In GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, we have as our vision, it dovetails with the Governor's vision, that Utah will lead the nation as the best performing economy and be recognized as the premier global business environment and tourist destination. And you know, when the governor came into office in the bottom of the Great Recession, he came up with that vision, and it seemed like a pretty lofty thing, maybe an impossibility. But by golly, we're there. I mean, we are as good a destination for business and tourism as there is. Our tourism, we just had the Utah Tourism Conference last week. Tourism in our state now is a $7.4 billion industry that generates over $1 billion of state and local tax revenue for our state. Pretty phenomenal. And our mission at GOED is to enhance quality of life by increasing and diversifying Utah's revenue base and improving employment opportunities. Quality of life is a wonderful thing we have here in the state. And broadband plays a very significant role in our quality of life. It really is, in this day and age, something that we can't live without for the most part. We, again, have been very fortunate. We have been leading the nation for the last 7 months in job growth. Our job growth has been twice the national average. And, you know, remember in the presidential debates when one of the candidates was talking about a 4% job growth for the country, and everybody was telling him he was crazy, that couldn't happen. Well, it's been happening in Utah, and it is happening right now. We have some significant job growth, and one of the things that has made our economy so strong is that we're now the 3rd most diverse economy in America, which is phenomenal. Ask North and South Dakota about the importance of having a diverse economy. You know, they were booming and going great guns, and then all of a sudden the oil prices went down and their economy went with it. Here in Utah, when one industry suffers, all of the other industries can help buoy up our economy and keep that from really becoming a negative. So we continue to be on a roll here in Utah with that. And with that come many accolades. Almost every week we get a new accolade. The number one this, the number two that, the number three this. I call us the state of superlatives because we're the best of this or the most of that. Pro-business. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has given us the Enterprising State Award 2 years in a row. And that they do a number of rankings. And Utah is the only state ever to rank in the top 10 in all 6 categories that they have. And we've done it not only once, but we've done it twice. We're the only state to ever do it, and we've done it 2 years in a row. That shows you how strong our economy is right now. Let's see here. Okay, the other nice thing that comes with it, we talk about quality of life. The lifestyle accolades that come and the quality of life that we have here. We have great job satisfaction. We're a happy state. We're a healthy state. Even a bike-friendly state. For those of us who bike, that's a wonderful thing. We have great skiing. Salt Lake City was the number 2 least stressed out city. Maybe Colorado with their new marijuana laws will pass us soon. I don't know, but we have good things going here, and we need to keep it going. That's one of our challenges. Here, venture capital. Used to be Utah was a flyover state, and the venture capitalists took all their money to California or somewhere else and hardly even recognized what was happening here in Utah. Now, venture capitalists have discovered Utah, and any one day you'll have them crawling about here in Utah County and all throughout the state looking at our companies, and this per deal value is really quite astonishing when you look at it. Provo-Orem area, right here where we are, the epicenter, over $51 million per deal last year, compared to, you look at the San Francisco and Silicon Valley totals, and between Provo-Orem and Salt Lake City, we were getting more than our share of the money, which is a great thing for business here in our area. In GOED, we do 3 things. We attract, and that's mainly through our tourism. We try to attract tourists here. We were in China a couple of weeks ago on a trade mission in Hong Kong. We met with one of the most influential Chinese people, business leaders. The governor and I were meeting with him, and he said, you know what you really need to do to get Chinese to come and do business with you is attract them as tourists. He said, this year, 100 million Chinese will leave the mainland to go on vacation. In 5 years, that number will be 200 million Chinese that will go on vacation. As their middle class grows and they have more discretionary income, they're going to be coming. And China has now become, in terms of the nation that spends the most money in Utah, they leapfrogged a number of European nations. Number 1 is Canada. Number 2 is now China. And the good thing about them, when they come, they spend money. They love to go buy. They love to go shopping. And so we're trying to figure out how to attract more of them when they come. Recruiting, we recruit select businesses and other entities to come to the state. We recruit foreign direct investment, and we grow the economy here by helping our existing businesses grow. Those are the 3 things that we really do in GOED. We have we try, see, this thing has a little delay to it, so I need to be patient. Yeah. So we collaborate with a lot of partners that we have here in the state. And I've never lived really anywhere else, so I don't get how it is everywhere. But I have had a number of people in recent months and even weeks tell me that come in from out of state, they said, you people in Utah actually work together, which is not the way it is in other states. We go to other states and they're fighting with each other and they can't communicate and they won't get in the same room. And I come to Utah and you people will get in the same room and you'll talk and you'll solve problems. And it really is something that we do, and I've not known it any other way, but apparently it's a real strength that we have. And these are some of our partners that we do that with in GOED. And it's really a pretty great network of entities designed to help grow our economy. Then, whoa, that was fast. Then here are some of the other internet providers that we have here in the state as we try to collaborate with our, in our broadband program with Kelly's shop. These people do a wonderful job. The legislature last year created the Utah Broadband Outreach Center, and we have now over 50 providers that the center works with to help map their services and plan for future needs. The FCC chairman, Tom Wheeler, he recently said, and this is pretty fascinating, today the largest taxi company in the country doesn't own any vehicles. The largest overnight lodging company doesn't own any hotels. And the fastest growing of the top 10 retailers has no showrooms. So broadband continues to be an important lifeblood to many industries. I was meeting yesterday with some people from American Samoa. They wanted to come and talk to me about how to grow the economy in that little island country. My first question to them was, how connected is your country to the internet? And they said, not very. We don't have a lot of internet connection. And I said, well, it seems to me, if you really want to grow your economy, the first thing that you need to do, your top priority, ought to be to get broadband and the internet to your people. Because once they have internet on their computer, they can become an entrepreneur. They can hook into the world's economy and it'll grow. I said, until you do that, you're probably going to struggle. And that's true. In this day and age, you've got to have the internet to really reach your full potential as an economy and as a business. So one of the big things that the center has done, and I really tip my hat to Kelly and her team for this, they created locate.utah.gov. How many of you have been on the site? I went on it this morning just for fun, played around, put in my home address. This site allows users to explore the state's broadband availability, utility information, transportation, enterprise zones, workforce, lifestyle features. I mean, it's a great site for site selectors looking to bring business, but for anybody who wants to see what's available in any particular area. It's already received national attention. It won the 2015 Digital Government Achievement Award in the Government to Business category. And, Kelly, is there anything else like it out there?
It's pretty unique. Yeah, it's pretty unique. There are a few states that have done some commercial mapping, but not pairing it all based on
So it's a great tool, and hopefully you'll find a way to use it. I do. We point businesses to it that are looking to locate here. I've even pointed my son to it, who's looking to find a home here in Utah Valley. Told him to go look at it and see what's available in that area. The center continues to work with stakeholders to try to find ways to market this site so it can be used by local communities and businesses. Another fun thing is that Kelly was recently invited to the White House to participate in a roundtable discussion on how federal agencies can support broadband. Our center recommended that federal government agencies continue to evaluate their policies to reduce barriers to broadband. Imagine the federal government reducing barriers. That would be amazing. The center recommended streamlining permitting on federal lands and continuing to open up federal funding options for broadband. Now, again, more good news. Whoops, where'd it go? Sorry, went too fast. Utah's broadband is the fourth hair trigger here. We have the fourth fastest internet in the United States, and the fastest in the western United States. So you're doing a great job. I commend all of you, those of you who've helped make this possible through your companies that continue to upgrade services throughout the state. We're seeing major upgrades in both urban and rural, and we'll continue to work with the private sector to support their efforts. Again, we're collaborative here in this state. We get together. Kelly's here to be a resource. We hope that you'll utilize her and that she can continue to work with you to continue to improve our quality of life and our success through our great broadband program. Thanks to all of you for coming today, for your interest in helping make Utah a better place. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Val. That was great. So our next speaker, I'm super excited to introduce. James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, as he's known, is a triathlete who holds several Guinness World Records, including the world record for the most half triathlons and the most Ironman races completed in a one-year period. In 2015, earlier this year, he accomplished the unseemingly impossible feat of completing 50 Ironman distance triathlons in 50 days in 50 states, which is just mind-blowing. And he is also committed to raising awareness for childhood obesity. He grew up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, my hometown, and he lives in Linden, Utah with his wife and 5 children. So we are going to watch a quick video about him, and then he will enter the stage. But please join me in welcoming James Lawrence.
Where's that clicker? Oh, come on. Okay. We'll just leave it in the background playing for some good visuals. It is my voice in the video anyway, so I'm explaining in the video kind of what I did this summer. I did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. And just wanted to kind of say I was amazed at how the mind and the body change When I started, I did a 4-mile fun run, and my body hurt and my mind hurt, and so to try to even accomplish something like this was inconceivable. And I did a 4-mile fun run, and then my wife signed me up for a marathon, and that marathon just destroyed me. I struggled to finish, and so it was amazing for me to see the way that the mind and the body evolve, and how sometimes they don't align themselves at the same time. This is footage of me at the 50th race here in Utah, where 3,500 people came out in support of what we did. It was just unbelievable to experience that energy of Utah. He was talking about how incredible of a state that we have, and it's true. I came here. I'm originally from Canada, and I came here in 1999 just to visit a friend. I had a friend that lived in Orem, and I came to visit, and I never went home. And so it speaks volumes to what this state has to offer. The competition wasn't super hard. It's freezing in Canada, and so when you've got some warmer summers here, it's quite pleasant. Who here has done a triathlon of any distance? Okay, a couple of you. Anybody done an Ironman? One. How many? Don't say just. I've done one. Own it. Yeah. Which one did you do? St. George first year. That was the cold year, was it? Yeah, it was the year it was cold. They did it 3 years. Just so you know, I've done a few Ironmans in my day, and that Ironman event is, one, not only spectacular, but two, the toughest Ironman there is out there. A typical Ironman course will have a hilly bike, which in St. George is hilly, but then they'll flatten it out and it'll be a flat run. Well, St. George, they throw a nasty trick at you, and they make the run hilly too, which typically they don't do. So an Ironman consists of a 2.4-mile swim, followed by a 112-mile bike ride. Now, to put that into perspective, if you were to jump on your bicycle, Center Street in Orem, and bike all the way to the Utah-Idaho border, that's 112 miles. And then after you do that bike ride, you're going to get off and you're going to run a full marathon, which is the 26.2 miles, which is an accomplishment in itself. Back in 1999, Calgary Stampede is a famous rodeo there, and I had the opportunity. I don't know if it was an opportunity. A lot of people wouldn't think of it as that, but there was a contest to see who could ride the Ferris wheel. So picture the biggest Ferris wheel you can at Lagoon, to see who could ride the Ferris wheel for 10 days. And I thought, man, that's something I could do. The prize was $10,000. And their goal and objective was complete boredom. And so as bored as you guys are right now, times that by 1,000, and that's what I was experiencing. There was rules. They were simple. You couldn't do anything, and one of the rules happened to be you had to wear your clothing the way the manufacturer intended them to be worn. And so you had to be fairly intelligent to understand what you were wearing and how they were supposed to be worn. You wouldn't think, a baseball cap, it has to be worn forward. You see a lot of people wear it backwards. Well, you did that and you were disqualified. Or for example, a pair of sunglasses. Sunglasses had to be worn on your face. If you put them on top of your head, you were disqualified. And so in the midst of being bored, you had to be conscious of things that you were doing. One of the gentlemen on the ride, it came down to two of us. And one of the gentlemen on the ride, it was a rainy day on that last day. He was wearing rain pants with suspenders on them. And suspenders are meant to hold your pants up. Well, he was sitting, and so he didn't even think about it, and he had a moment of lack of concentration, and he pulls off the suspenders. Well, that was a clear violation of the rule to me. And a great thing happened. He was disqualified, and I got a pay raise. And that was actually the moment, that was a turning point in my life to where I won that money. I had lost my job, and I literally hitchhiked a ride to Utah in 1999, never went home. Met my wife, and we now have 5 kids, and 2 of them are here with me today. It's my oldest and my youngest, Lucy and Quinn. I didn't just wake up one day last year and say, hey, I think 50 Ironmans in 50 days is a good idea. I had a track record. My journey started in 2004 with that 4-mile fun run. It was here in Orem, and it was a shocking moment for me when I would look over and I was struggling to complete these 4 miles, and women in full conversation with their friends laughing were pushing their children in strollers, passing me. And that was a defining moment for me. I was 28 years old. I thought I was a physical specimen at the time. And it was very apparent to me that there was something that was wrong with me. I was healthy on the outside, but maybe not on the inside. And my heart hurt and my lung hurt. And my wife, Sunny, lovingly looked at me and said, "You're pathetic. And I'm signing you up for the Salt Lake City Marathon, figure it out." And I had an embarrassing moment that evening after the marathon. I went to some mixed martial arts fights in Salt Lake City, and I sat in the machoest of environments, and I didn't stand up till the end of the evening to leave. And when I did stand up, my knees had swollen up the size of cantaloupes, and I couldn't physically stand up because of that marathon that I ran. And so security actually had to come up and wheelchair me out of the facility. And I had a choice. I could allow that moment to define me and who I was and completely quit on endurance sports and have the attitude of I don't run because I have bad knees. Or I could try to figure out the sport and have my body evolve. And I chose the latter of the two, and I started to dive into endurance racing and try to figure it out. And as my mind and my body developed, I was able to accomplish 2 world records. One was the most Ironmans, half Ironmans in a year. I did that in 2010. And I actually broke that record by accident. I was racing to raise money for a charity, a local nonprofit, in our own quiet way to build dams in Africa. And did that race in 2010, and then sat down and have a conversation with my wife that I didn't want to just be the half Ironman world record holder. That I wanted to take a stab at the full Ironman world record, which at the time was 20, and it was held by a gentleman in Belgium. So in 2012, I did 30 full Ironman events through 11 countries. And again, I've traveled everywhere, not everywhere, but a lot of places. And every time I come home to Utah, we're spoiled here in the state. It's an unbelievable place to live. Oh, shoot, quick. It's a quick trigger, you're right. If you have a dream, it's uncrushable, a real dream, it's uncrushable. And trust me, today we're not going to talk about goals. There's, a million books and pamphlets that people have read on goals. I just want to touch on 2 things real quick. I'm a huge advocate of no goals too big. I thought that 30 Ironmans in 1 year was a big goal. Now, sitting where I am today, looking back, for me personally, that goal is laughable. If someone had told me that I could have a week in between Ironmans that I was going to compete in, that would be a luxury. That I would be able to lay down in a non-moving bed in between my events. That I'd be able to see my kids and be with my family and do activities in between. That would have also been a luxury, having done the consecutive Ironmans. And so when you're setting goals for yourself, think of the biggest thing that you could possibly think of as far as a goal to obtain, and then times it by 10. And now you have a goal that's big enough. The standard for consecutive Ironmans was 5 in a row. And so when I set the goal to do 50, again, I got laughed at and ridiculed, saying it was impossible. And in my mind, having done the half Ironmans, the full Ironmans, and wanting to do the consecutive Ironmans, 50 didn't seem that unrealistic to me because it was a choice that I was going to make. And so I literally changed that goal to be 10 times what the standard was for consecutive Ironmans. And then on the flip side of that, which is its counterpart, is its micro goals. And by that, it's literally breaking that giant goal. Once you've set it, put it aside, forget about it. But then it's breaking that goal into the most finite, granular tasks in order to accomplish that goal, and then attack those with aggression. I want to share a couple experiences that I had in 2012. This was a race in Texas, and this is when I was doing consecutive Ironmans every weekend for that 30 Ironman event. This was race number 9 in a series of 30, and I had just come off of a race in Brazil. And so my travel was very extensive. Coming home, it was close to 30 hours. A small time zone change. And so I was starting to experience exhaustion. In triathlon, I learned how to swim at age 28, and so I didn't grow up a swimmer, and so that's not my strongest of the three, the swim, bike, and the run. And as I was swimming, I came out of the water, and I was in 12th position of the race. And I started to get on the bike, and I started to make my way through the field. I can do an Ironman bike ride in about just around 5 hours to do the 112 miles. And so I was biking aggressively, and I got to about mile 60, and I had taken over, and I took over the lead of the race, and I was winning. And I got to mile 100, and I started to develop a cramp in my right quad. Now, who here has experienced that frightening moment in the middle of the night when your calf locks up on you, and you don't know what's happening, and you feel like you're being pummeled, and someone is pillaging your house? And it's only a few seconds long, but it's a moment of complete chaos in your life. Well, that's what was happening to my quadricep. It was grabbing just like that. And I thought, okay, I only have 12 miles to go. And with cycling, you're clipped into your shoes. And so I could just pedal with my left leg and successfully complete the 12 miles of the race, thinking, okay, if I can finish the 112 or these last 12, then I'll switch up the muscle groups I'm using, and I only have to run a marathon. And so to me, mentally, I could grasp that and get to that point. And so I biked those last 12 miles with just one leg, and I started to run the marathon. And I knew instantly that something was drastically wrong. I know my body really well. I've done enough competition that I know exactly where my heart rate should be at a certain run pace. And my heart rate was elevated, out of control. And so I slowed down to a walk, and it was still out of control. And so I kept thinking to myself, this is going to be a rough marathon. I was approaching onto mile 17, and the cramping had moved from one quad into the other quad, into my hamstring, and now my legs. And at mile 17, all in an instant, that calf cramp that you've all experienced, that happened to every single muscle in my body at the same time. And I collapsed and I hit the ground. And my day was over. Medical staff started to treat me, and essentially my journey to complete 30 Ironmans, or that goal, was done. My friend was there at the time, and he walked over to me, and he had his cell phone in his hand, and he said, "It's your wife. She'd like to talk to you." And I said, "No, thank you." Hard pass. In that moment of failure and disgust with myself, the last person I wanted to talk to was my wife. He came back 5 minutes later, and his phone was in his hand again, and he said, "It's your daughter. She'd like to talk to you." Well, I can say no to my wife, but I have a much harder time saying no to my daughter. Lucy was 10 at the time, and I had 9 miles to complete in the race. And Lucy, I said hello, and she says, "Dad, you told me you were going to do 30 Ironmans this year, and you told me it was a world record. Can you walk and finish the 9 miles?" And I said, "Lucy, I can't." And it killed me at that moment to say those words to my daughter and let her down. And there was a pause on the phone, and she goes, "Dad, you told me it was a world record, and you told me you were going to do 30 Ironmans. Can you crawl? Can you crawl 9 miles and finish the race?" And my response was the same. I said, "Lucy, I can't." And then she goes, "Dad, you told me it was a world record, and you told me you would do 30 Ironmans. Can you cartwheel? Can you cartwheel 9 miles and finish the race?" This time my answer was a little different. I remember thinking to myself, how is it possible that this 10-year-old girl has that much conviction and that much belief that she thinks I could possibly cartwheel 9 miles and finish this race? And so my answer this time was, yes, Lucy, I can. And I pulled the IVs out of my arms, and I had assistants put in on my socks and on my shoes. There was about an hour delay in this time period. And I was starting to feel a little bit better with some fluids in my body. And I started walking, and we walked into the night, and I cartwheeled that last 10 meters and finished that race. But what I learned from that was that I lacked conviction and belief in what I was doing. And that she was setting the ultimate example for me of having that amount of belief. So I had set the goal, but did I really believe that I could do it? And I made a choice from that point forward that I would never experience that again. And I made a very solid choice that I would have the utmost conviction possible. And I went on to win 2 Ironmans in that year and finish second 5 times. And my times over the second half of that year were faster than the first half, all because I made a choice, and I now really truly believed in what I was doing. Successful people do not take the path of least resistance. I had the record was 20 Ironmans, and at race 21, I had broken that record, and I could have stopped. And I would still be in the Guinness Book of World Records, and I would still be completely satisfied with that record. But I wanted to challenge myself, and that's why I set the bar at 30. And sometimes in a journey, we do things that aren't just for ourselves. We need to bring people along with us. And one of the great lessons that I learned in 2012 was if you put other people first and help them try to accomplish their goals, your goal becomes attainable and also more special. I want to introduce you guys to a boy named Dayton. Many of you have heard his story. He's just like you and I, mentally. He's just trapped in his body. He has the same desires to swim, bike, run, do technology, play games, all of these things, but he's trapped in his body. He has a condition that's called cerebral palsy. And it had come to my attention that he loved to do triathlons. And I thought, what an opportunity for me to take and help him become an Ironman. And so we arranged it and made everything work. And being from Canada, I wasn't super familiar with the geographic locations of every state. And I just thought all of Arizona was flat. I'd been to Phoenix, and it's a flat area. Well, Lake Havasu is not flat. And that's where we decided to pull Dayton, not knowing the area there, and it was also very hot. The swim went fantastic. Dayton actually fell asleep in the raft, and it was a really smooth day. And with biking being my strength, I wasn't concerned about the day biking with Dayton at all. And when we started biking, there was a malfunction with the cart almost instantly, and I knew it. What had happened was the angle had changed just by the smallest of degrees. And it had put me off course. And the cart that Dayton was in was trying to go left. That's what it was trying to do. And I was trying to go forward. And so when you've got 2 opposing forces like that, it felt like a tug-of-war was taking place. And so it made the day very difficult. Going up those hills, I was at a speed of 4 miles an hour. I got halfway through the bike, and I was already at my 5-hour mark, 5.5-hour mark, and I still had half of the distance to go. The bike ride ultimately ended up taking us 10.5 hours to complete. And in a normal situation, we would have been cut off because as soon as the sun goes down, it becomes unsafe and they pull you off the race course. Well, there was a police officer there at the time, and he took it upon himself to go punch out at the precinct and come back and give us a full light escort in to help us to finish that race. And we were progressing through, and I sent a message back to the race director, and I pleaded with him, don't cut us off. I said, don't take this opportunity away from us, and you know I can run. Let me bring Dayton to the finish line. Let us accomplish that. And with everything that happened, everybody's familiar with the London Bridge that fell down. We've all heard that story. And it actually did fall down, and they took a piece of that bridge and they stuck it in the middle of Lake Havasu. And every race organization wants to showcase the best part of their state. Well, the best part of Lake Havasu is this bridge. And so we had to run over that bridge several times. Well, to get up and down over that bridge caused a problem for us with Dayton, having to take him in and out of the cart. I'm going to show a quick video and I hope it works because it's a great video that shows kind of my day with Dayton. And I want you to watch the portion of where they show a kind of a close-up of the cart, and you can see Dayton oscillating there. The cutoff for an Ironman is 17 hours, and we came across the finish line at 16 hours and 48 minutes.
You know, going through the year, there was many moments where I had connections to people where I don't think I would have made it on my own, and I had to rely on the energy and efforts of others. A race in particular I can think of as the 27th race of the year, where I had the opportunity to race with a boy named Dayton. He has cerebral palsy and he can't swim, bike, or run. I wanted to give him the opportunity to be an Ironman and help him cross that finish line.
This is one of the coolest things I've ever done, man. I'm having a blast.
Had it not been for his spirit or his energy, I don't know that I would have made it.
Can't wait to get off this bike. I feel good. We got about 4 miles to go. I can taste the marathon. Bringing Dayton home.
I don't think I'll ever forget that day with Dayton. It was one of the more special, real days that I had all year.
That was easily one of the hardest things I've ever done, and at the exact same time, one of the coolest things I've ever done. I wanted to quit at mile 30 on the bike ride, and I kept thinking to myself, Dayton can't ride a bike, and I get to ride my bike today. And I kept saying to myself, I get to ride my bike. I get to ride my bike. And then we got to the run, and I kept saying, Dayton can't run, and I get to run today. And it was really Dayton that got me through that whole thing. I was done. I was completely exhausted, and I just couldn't quit. And so it was one of the coolest experiences I've had this year. So thank you, Dayton.
A couple interesting things from that video that I said. Dayton can't ride or run a bike, and I get to. And I think often in life we forget the things that we get to do. And we forget what a great place that we live in and the opportunities that we have. And I also said, I just drew a blank. I said it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I think that's an important lesson because oftentimes we give up and quit when things get hard. But those are the moments that we learn the most about ourselves and we grow as individuals and humans. Alan F. Morganson says, work smarter, not harder. We've all heard it a million times. And if you wrote that down, cross it out. Just because the Iron Cowboy says work smarter and harder. We're in a time and a generation where people are soft. And we're not willing to do something hard, and we're not willing to work at something. And so I think that phrase is no longer applicable in such a competitive environment. And it's those individuals that are willing to work smarter and harder that ultimately will accomplish great things. I want to share an experience that I had this past summer on the 7th consecutive Ironman. I wanted to pull Dayton again, just because I wanted a do-over from the 16 plus hour day that we had in Arizona. And I'm going to rewind just to set the stage as far as exhaustion is concerned. I thought I was exhausted on that day back in 2012. But to start the 50 consecutive Ironmans, logistically, we had to start in Hawaii. There was just no way we could go from here to there and get in an Ironman, so the first one had to be there. And in order to catch our flight from Hawaii to Alaska, we had to start at midnight. And so Ironman number 1 was done with no sleep, starting at midnight, completed the Ironman, got on a flight, landed in Anchorage at 6 a.m. to start the Ironman at 7. Did Ironman number 2, caught a flight out of Anchorage to Washington, landed at 6 a.m., started the 3rd consecutive Ironman at 7. So in the first 3 days, 3 Ironmans, 3 states, a total of 7.5 hours of sleep, all on commercial airlines. And so that looking back at it and watching the video footage, I was talking about exhaustion and fatigue and tunnel vision starting at race number 4, which ultimately caught up to me at race 18 when I fell asleep on the bike and crashed. That's the level of exhaustion that I was experiencing. This is one of those moments when I want you to learn from my experience, not go out there and try to, maybe not believe me that it hurts, that the ground is a horrible alarm clock. I want you to take my word for it. It's not a lot of fun. And so this was a day number 7 consecutive where we were going from Nevada to Arizona, and in the middle of the night we hit a deer. And I was trying to sleep in the motorhome, and we hit a deer, and I already had a huge fear of driving through the night and hitting deers. In 2000, the day before my wedding, I was coming home from Mesquite, and we hit a deer, and I rolled my car 4 times and luckily walked away from it. And so I already had this fear of colliding with deers in the middle of the night. And so this reinforced my fear. On the way to Arizona, I was exhausted. It was like that calf cramp in the middle of the night when you hit a deer in the middle of the night and you're trying to sleep and you're exhausted. It's very terrifying. I get to Arizona, and I was in Nevada. I had torn my shoulder in the swim. And so I was facing having to do the 2.4 mile swim with one arm. And then also Dayton was there, and I was going to have to pull Dayton. And so Casey stepped up to the plate and said, "I'll pull Dayton beside you, just get through the swim." Well, I took one step into the water and I cut my foot open on some glass. And so I'm going to swim with one arm. I've cut my foot open, and you can see on the picture on the left, my foot had swollen, and I had so many blisters on it from the consecutive Ironmans that I had to do the entire bike ride with my feet on top of my shoes. To make matters worse, my mind wasn't 100% sharp. I miscalculated, and we biked 115 miles instead of 112. And so incident after incident between when we left Nevada to when we were about to leave Arizona, I had many, many reasons to quit and not do hard things. We get to the run portion of it, and I'm a big advocate of prevention over treatment. And I was feeling a slight twinge in my knee, and so I put on a pair of knee braces that I'd never worn before. And by the time I got to mile 20, I could no longer feel anything from the knees down. Unknowing, I had cut off all the circulation from the knees down, and blood flow and oxygen was no longer, or was being limited to my heart and my brain. And so my body was slowly shutting down over the course of the marathon. And so I get to about mile 26, and I get to the parking lot, and I still have that 0.2 to go. And I remember having Casey on one side and Aaron on the other, and I was like, how far is that street lamp post? And they're like, I don't know, 200 meters. And I'm like, okay, I can make it to there. And I would literally drag my feet to try to get it to there, and then I would get there, and I would say, okay, turn me around. I didn't have the wits to turn my own self around, and so they would physically turn me around, and I would drag my feet back to the location. I was like, how far is that? And they're like, it's not enough. And so I did that to the post and back until we hit the 26.2. And everybody that was present in Arizona in that moment, there's no way any of them thought that I was going to start the next day. And I didn't think it was even possible to start the next day, given the physical condition that I was in. And I had a great medical staff there with me, and I put on a pair of compression boots that worked through the night to push all the blood and fluid out of my legs. And my legs had swollen up so bad that it was like someone had put softballs in there. And it was so hard that you could push on it, and it would indent and stay indented with all the fluid until it would, the fluid would move back around. And I had every opportunity to quit. And had I thought in my mind, I have 43 Ironmans to go, there's no way I would have been able to wrap my brain around that. But mentally, I broke it down and just kept thinking, it's the next step, it's just the next step, it's just the next step. And next thing I knew, I woke up and I had completed the 50 Ironmans. I don't know how that slide got in there. Now, I just wanted to show that my foot, we were dealing with a lot of things. So if you ever are on a hike with your kids and you have a blister, I don't want to hear about it. You just keep hiking, and it'll be okay. One of the biggest questions I got while I was out there was, what's next? And I hated that question, only because I had set the goal, and I had that task in mind, and in order to accomplish that goal, I had to be focused on staying present, and literally my answer became, it's the next step, or it's the marathon tonight, or it's the bike ride, or whatever portion of my day I was at. I had to be so hyper-focused on taking just that next step, because again, had I thought, I have 40, however many Ironmans to go, mentally I couldn't have wrapped my brain around that. But I could wrap my brain around, okay, I'm just going to start swimming today. I'm literally going to jump in the water. Because I was so exhausted, it took them probably an hour, half an hour to an hour, just to wake me up, get me out of the van, and make sure I was eating food. I had to consume 8,500 calories in a day, and just eating that much food was a chore, especially when you're trying to consume clean fuel. I could have probably eaten 10 Big Macs and been okay and got the 8,500 calories, but that would have been a sufficient amount of fuel to go every single day. A typical breakfast would be 2 bowls of oatmeal with walnuts, honey, and some coconut. I'd eat both of those. I'd go to the swim. I'd come out of the swim, and I would eat an entire plate of eggs, hash browns, bacon, pancakes, fruit. I would eat 4,500 calories before the bike ride would even start. And so I got to the point where I hated eating, but it was just a necessity and one of those things that I had to do to accomplish it. And it got to the point where it wasn't just the next step or getting going or doing some of those hard things. I had to break it down into what I called the power minute. And I thought to myself, I can be perfect for the next 60 seconds. And if I can perfect the next 60 seconds, then I'll be able to make it onto the next 60 seconds. And at first, I was only able to have this hyper concentration for minutes at a time. And eventually, I got to the point where beyond race 30 of the 50, I was able to almost have perfect days of execution, to where I was able to control my mind. My shoulder didn't get any better. It didn't repair itself during the 50. I just stopped complaining about it, and I stopped putting my attention towards it. A cool concept is that time doesn't wait for us. And what I mean by that is whether I decided to start or put myself in the game, July 25th, which was my finish line, was going to come. It was going to show up whether I was starting or not, sleeping in the van or starting to swim and start my day. July 25th was going to come. And so I had that choice every single day to get up and insert myself into the game or stay in the van. And so by applying these principles, by staying present, by when I was struggling implementing the power minute, and having the knowledge and the concept that time's not going to wait for me, allowed me to accomplish what I was able to accomplish. The next thing I knew, I woke up, and on the 50th day, I had accomplished what everybody had told me was absolutely impossible, which was the 50 consecutive Ironmans. The other question that I hated was how are you feeling? And I would always think to myself, I've done 45 consecutive Ironmans. How do you think I'm feeling? I feel awful. I'm exhausted. My feet hurt. My shoulder hurts. My butt hurts. I mean, 7 hours a day on a bicycle. I mean, you guys can. Anybody that's ridden a bicycle around the valley knows that. You know, it's not even a chair like this. It was funny. I had a guy. It was in Vermont. It was hot that day, and we were biking over, and we looked down, and there was a freeway, and it was a traffic jam. And he looks over and he goes, "Man, I'm sure glad I'm not there down in that." And I thought, man, perspective's amazing. I would love to be in a cushy seat with air conditioning in a car right now. So it's just interesting to me that perception and perspective is always where we are on our journey and on our lives. That seemed like an ideal place for me to be off of my bike. And for him, he was like, it was his first ride in I don't know how long, but he hadn't done consecutive days. And so to him, from where he was sitting, it was an ideal place. Where's your focus? And how much conviction do you have? We talked about that conviction with my daughter and how much conviction that she had. And I had taken that lesson that I learned in 2012 and applied it to this. And I did. I had that conviction in order to accomplish this. But where's your focus was interesting to me, because when people would ask me that question, how am I feeling? I didn't have that luxury to really dissect everything that I was feeling that day. And had I started, had every time someone asked me that question, had I started to go down the list, yeah, you know, I've got a million blisters on my feet. I've lost every toenail. I can't feel my left leg. I had lost numbness in the ring finger and pinky and toes of both my feet, because your body, when you're putting it through an extreme challenge, your body makes it has a choice. Do I send oxygen to his heart and his vital organs, or do I send it to his extremities? And my body was willing to sacrifice my fingers and toes in order to have my heart and lungs continue to function at a high level. And so had I started to focus on all of those things that were going down and break that down with every single person that asked me, it would have started to spiral me into ultimately where I wouldn't be able to accomplish this. And so what you need to ask yourself is where is your focus in what you're trying to accomplish? Do you have the 100% conviction, and what choices are you making in order to get yourself closer to it? And then finally, one of the last big question that I got was, how did I do it? And this is a key principle is that I did a lot of little things consistently over a long period of time. And that goes all the way back to the micro goals that I talked about. And this is one of the biggest points that I want you guys to take away from this when you're trying to accomplish tasks. is again, I didn't just wake up and I didn't have a sharp mind mentally in order to accomplish something like this. It was something that I'd worked on for years. I wrestled for 10 years. Starting in 7th grade, I wrestled for 10 years. And then I rode the Ferris wheel for 10 days, and I increased that tool, that mental tool that I had. And then I did the half Ironman world record, and then I did the full Ironman world record, and then it gave me the opportunity to do the 50 consecutive, because I wouldn't have been able to mentally be tough enough just to do the 50. I had to sharpen that tool from day one. And so people just aren't patient enough with what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to create. And it's becoming an expert. And even it goes back to that power minute. Take your goals and make that 1 minute of what you're trying to accomplish, those basics, and become perfect at it. And then if you become perfect at everything you're doing, one of the jobs that I do is I help people go from sitting on the couch to becoming an Ironman. I take someone through that entire process. And I'll give them a workout, and I'll give them the first week of workouts that they need to accomplish. And this happens a lot. I'll notice that they're not putting in the workouts that they've done. They did Monday. They didn't do Tuesday. They didn't do Wednesday. I call them up on Thursday, and I say, how come you didn't do the workout I gave you on Tuesday and Wednesday? And they're like, well, I don't think I can do an Ironman. And I said, what do you mean you don't think you can do an Ironman? You set that goal and you hired me to help you become an Ironman. And they said, well, Monday's workout was a little hard for me. It was challenging. And I thought, well, and he said to me, I struggled with that. There's no way I can do an Ironman. And I said, your Ironman is a year from now. I said, all I want you to do is focus on today's workout. Let's take an Ironman off the table. You're no longer getting ready for an Ironman. You're getting ready to do today's workout. And even inside that workout, I want you just to do the tasks inside that workout. And I think too often we get sidetracked and we get overwhelmed by the enormity of the goal that we set, that we can't wrap our minds around it. And so once I get my clients to hyper focus on just today's task and just that workout, I've already laid the plan out for you. And so if you have an appropriate plan laid out, you'll reach that point where you'll get to the start of that Ironman and it becomes very attainable. And the reason it becomes attainable is because you did all of the action steps along the way. And all you had to focus on was today's workout. And once I got these clients to realize that, and we hyper focus on just today's workout, every single one of them gets to the start of the Ironman, finishes it, and has an unbelievable experience. But had they quit on that first workout because they couldn't do it, they wouldn't have had the opportunity or that experience to do that final race. Wow, it's sensitive. So we covered all these things today. If you want to take a picture of that or write them down, you can, and hopefully it'll trigger some of the key points that we talked about. No goals too big, willing to work for it, the power minute, small things over time, having enough conviction, that story with Lucy. Taking the very next step, time never stops. And then the last thing I just want to touch on real quick, and then I'll leave you guys for the rest of your conference, is to put on your uniform. And what I mean by that is, Michael Jordan puts on his Air Jordans and turns into this, unbelievable basketball player. LeBron James puts on his headband and turns from LeBron James to this freak on the court. You've got Tiger Woods in his heyday. He puts on his red shirt on Sunday and was unbelievable. There's so many examples of a football player who you meet the guy and he's the nicest guy on the planet, but then he puts on his shoulder pads and he destroys people. How do they make that mental shift? And I call it putting on your uniform. And for me, it was a pair of these yellow sunglasses. And when I put on these sunglasses, I would change from father and husband to the Iron Cowboy. And to be honest, he's a bad, bad man. And when he puts on those glasses and he sets out to do his goal, he can accomplish anything, to where everybody said it was impossible and that I was literally going to die if I attempted this, what we accomplished. And looking back, I struggled in the water. I struggled, being transported from event to event. But when I got on my bike and I put on my glasses, that's where I excelled. And on the final day, we started with 400 riders that came out to ride with us, and we slowly shed them and shed them and shed them, and then we did the marathon, and on the 50th one in Utah, it was my fastest of all 50. And I did an 11:30 Ironman on the 50 consecutive one. And it's because I made a choice from about 30 on. I stopped complaining, I stopped whining, I stopped focusing on everything that was hurting. And I turned into the Iron Cowboy and put on my uniform. And so it can be a pair of glasses for you guys, it can be a ring that you put on, but decide what that is for you that turns you from Mr. Nice Guy to whatever you want to do to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And for me, like I said, it was these glasses, and it made me a different person. Wow, I'm gonna get it. There we go. No success outside the home can compensate for failure inside it. It's a famous Utah or Mormon quote, and I love it. If everything else before this was garbage and didn't resonate with you, then just take this one principle away. Family is my number one priority to me. I've got 5 kids, and everything I do is for them. The reason I can accomplish what I do is because I tell my kids that I'm going to do it. And I take that to heart, and when I tell them I'm going to do something, I do it. And so if nothing else was of value, I hope this one thing is. I really do appreciate everybody taking the time to come out, and maybe you're not here to listen to my story, but I love to tell it. And just seriously thank you, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you so much. That was really inspiring. I'm sure that everybody just really enjoyed that.